Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the One Hub pre-race talk show. As you can tell, I'm sounding a lot more manly than what Jess would normally sound like. Obviously, she's not here for today. She's over at
That's
the
a matter of opinion.
BTCC. Okay, yeah, fair enough. Of course, my name is Jake. I'm for the P2 commentators here and also racing in the P1 side of things. Being trusted to cover this for today and of course joined alongside for the pre-race talk show as always Mr. Colin R. Mason. Feeling a little bit under the weather today, aren't you, Carl?
Yes, I'm struggling a bit today. I'm struggling a bit. Still gonna obviously commentate P3. Still gonna race, but yeah, I'm feeling a bit sorry for myself. But still very excited. Obviously, we got the real Formula One now in about 55 minutes, so we will make sure this is all wrapped up for everyone to go and watch that. And then, of course, Singapore for us.
Of course. If you guys are in the One Hub Discord, just in case you have missed it, there is going to be a practice straight after the Singapore Grand Prix, about 3 p.m. UK time. So just make sure if you wanted to join that, more than welcome to do so. Obviously, for some reason, lobbies seem to fill up every single week now, which is very good to see in practice. So if you do want to jump in, it's more of a first come, first serve basis. Make sure you're doing that for sure. Normally, we would have a hot lap being played as well, just to showcase, of course, the Singapore circuit, the good old Marina Bay. But unfortunately, we weren't able to do that for this week, so we'll just have to skip over that for this week. But of course, there's been some there's been some change in lineups. Of course, talking about car wear as usual, and of course, towards the end of the stream, the usual of the weather for this evening. So make sure you are tuning in for that one. But just briefly mentioned it, Cole. The driver lineups. There's been a multitude of changes for both P3 and P2 this season.
Yes, so there's been quite a lot of changes. From the P3 tier, there's going to be 4 drivers demoted from P2. That is Joe and Lawrence, and they're going to be taking up the McLaren seats. Proverb is going to be taking the Mercedes seat, and Vittenhow is going to take the Ferrari seat. And the 4 drivers being promoted from P3 is Burjax, who's going to jump in the Ferrari. Jacob's going to be jumping in the Mercedes. Mr. Zontel is going to be in the Racing Bull. And in the Kick Sauber, it's going to be Kinney. Now, a couple of bits of info for everyone regarding these swaps. So the championship points earned already in each tier will remain as they are. Also, the constructors' points will remain as they are, and if a driver who's moved teams wins the constructors, they will be included in that victory. Now, if the team they join in wins the constructors, they will be included in that. But regarding the drivers' championships for those points, their points will in the new tier will start at 0. And importantly, if they've already taken a car part in their previous tier, they won't need to take it again. And news about the P3 drivers' championship will all be revealed later on today on all our socials. But we also have a new driver with us, Jack, in P1 of Psycho, S-I-K-O. So a new driver for us to contend with as well.
Yeah, it certainly is. So, I mean, still just, I think, 4 or 5 more rounds left to go. There's still constant changes going on, which is nice to see. You know, people still wanting to get involved with One Hub, despite there being, say, only a couple of rounds left. And yeah, so just sort of changes here, there, and everywhere. But, you know, people improving on their pace, and unfortunately, people dropping down, as you say, as well. So, I think it's going to be quite interesting. I mean, we were sort of just speaking about it just before we went on air. The fact that Jacob has already won the championship with a few rounds to go, and then, you know, has now been given a spot in the P2 tier just to, you know, maybe try and shake a few things up on the P2 side. I think that's going to be quite interesting, you know. I mean, when you'd have a look at the qualifying pace of the guys in the P3 tier, you know, the likes of Jacob, likes of Burjets, Kinney, they would contend with the likes of, you know, the top guys in their qualifying side of things, or maybe even close to the top end of the mid pack. You know, you've got you guys like Moki, you guys like Larkin, who I know is probably a bit better in the race than qualifying, but would usually be sort of qualifying around that kind of pace. I mean, you even said it before. Kinney at Imola did a better lap time than the pair of us.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, which shows his improvement. So, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised to see the likes of certainly Jacob and Kinney fighting for podiums even in P2. I think they could give Moogs, Larkin, and Papa a good run for their money. I think they're going to find it quite difficult contending with these new drivers. So it's going to be a lot of tactics involved because they know that those drivers aren't going to be fighting for the championship. And so, they're not going to be want to be fighting them too hard. They're just going to be concentrating on their nearest championship rivals.
Yeah, it certainly will. And as I say, for that P2 tier, obviously, unfortunately, Jamie is missing tonight, so I'll be joined with Quinn, and this will be, I think, his first time doing comms in the P2 tier this season. And, he's coming into it with, I believe, there's still just the 4 drivers at the front of the field. Very close compact, well, more so the top 3, as Larkin had a bit of probably a disappointing result. I'm sure he wouldn't mind me saying last week out in Imola. But he's still involved in that title fight. But the top 3, they're all separated by 6 points. I mean, our championship, first and second, Papa Squanch and Solau are tied on points for the lead of the championship. Only reason that Papa's ahead is because he's winning that on countback. But they're tied on points, which is insane to me. The fact that there's 3 drivers that close in points.
Isn't it brilliant? Isn't it absolutely brilliant? And this is what we want. We want it this close. This is why we have moved these drivers, is to make sure that the tiers are balanced. A lot of leagues out there, they'll see a guy who's too quick for the tier, and they'll just leave it. And they won't do anything about it. And then that, disheartens the other drivers. And then that's when poor attendances happen. So we are always looking at making sure that the leagues are balanced and done in a fair way as possible. But yeah, P2, I mean, I can't call P2. The only thing I will say is Moogs is having an absolutely awesome run the last couple of races. He's probably my favourite at the minute. Papa must be starting to feel a bit of the pressure now. Especially, I think he won the first 3. So he must have been really confident and thinking, do you know what, all I got to do now is just keep doing what I'm doing and I'll be champion. And Moogs has gone, nah, you're okay, mate. I want to be involved in this as well.
Well, I mean, he was on the podium for the first 5 races out in the P2 tier. And then Baku happened, ended up finishing 11th, and then Imola was just shy of a podium last week. So yeah, the P2 tier, it's very that Papa is definitely now sort of shaking at the fact that Morgan he's won the last 3 races. So Papa Squanch winning the first 3, and Morgan has won the last 3. And with it being Singapore tonight, qualifying, I'm sure a lot of people would say around Singapore is pretty much everything. So because it's very hard to overtake around Singapore. There's only 2 DRS zones. 3 DRS zones, but they're all quite small and narrow. So it's very hard to overtake around this circuit. And Singapore's usually, it's a very good track to drive. I love driving it. But this is definitely, if you thought Imola last week was about strategy, this week, this is definitely going to be about strategy, especially with how close and tight-knit the walls are. It's very easy for a safety car to come out. So I won't be at all surprised if we see some in P3 and P2. Across all the tiers for this evening, I think there's definitely going to be some safety cars coming into play for it.
I'm almost certain we'll see at least one safety car in each tier tonight, which means, with the track, like you said, overtaking so difficult round here, which means that getting your strategy right, making sure you pit at the right time, potentially getting an undercut on the driver ahead of you is going to be so crucial for these drivers. And I mean, we know how difficult Singapore is, Jack. One mistake and you're in the wall and you've lost your front wing, and then you're in, one big mess. But I love the circuit, and you're right. This race could be won and lost in qualifying.
Yeah, it certainly can be. So make sure you guys are tuning in obviously for this evening. You know, you got P3 at 4:30 p.m. UK time, covered by Colin and Nick. P2, as you can see on your screen, at 6 p.m. by me and Quinn, and P1 will be by Mr. Iberbrim Mike, and I believe it will be Max, Max 2203, I think his name is, for the first time in the P1 side of things. So I'm looking forward to seeing how this is going to go. Obviously, we very briefly glanced over the P3 side of things. Obviously, we've got to talk about it. Both Joe and Lawrence moving down into the McLaren side of things. I mean, you know, Jacob's already wrapped up that championship, but surely that McLaren, or the McLaren boys, as well as Vitinho as well, I think they could probably cause a bit of a shake up with the rest of the guys that are usually towards the top end of the P3 tier. You know, you got your likes of, you got your dad, you got Matthias Gazerman, since he's dropped down from the P2 tier, has been having some pretty good run as well. So I would have thought that they could make a bit of noise in that P3 tier as well.
100%. And with Vitinho, I mean, if he just has a little glance at the Constructors' Championship, he'll see that the Ferrari's got a 20-point lead in the Constructors, which means that if he can perform well in the remaining few races, Vitinho could go away with a Constructors' Championship. So it's all to play for. Williams in second on 20 points, and of course Jamie is missing this evening, so Dad's on his own, trying to make sure that he gets good points. No pressure, Dad. So he's gonna be wanting to maximise the result tonight, not only for his drivers' championship, but also for the constructors as well.
Yeah, no, for sure. So I think it's going to be very interesting. I think they're definitely going to cause a bit of a shake-up in that P3 side of things. And I think, you know, with the remaining races to go, as I say, the championships for the P3 tier has been wrapped up, but the actual constructors itself definitely will still play for. I mean, there's a 20-point gap, as you were saying, Colin, between the Ferrari and the Williams, and then a 44-point gap between the Mercedes and the Ferrari. I mean, there haven't been ever any changes in the Mercedes side. Well, sorry, Whip and Proverb jumping into the Mercedes as well, obviously from the P2 tier. He's now, I mean, I've seen a few instances where Proverb can fight with like the mid-pack of the P2 side of things, which I would be expecting both Burjax, Jacob and Kinney, or all three of them, sorry, to be doing this evening. So I'm expecting Whip and Proverb to potentially be up there fighting the likes of your dad, of the other to be two guys, you know, Joe, Lawrence, that kind of thing. So I think it's going to be very close for sure. I think you can't rule out which team is going to finish where in the P3 side of things. I think it definitely all still to play for in terms of constructors wise, championship wise. To say, unfortunately, that's out the window. But you know, you still got that bit to play for on the constructor side of things. I see Mikey in the chat is saying that he wasn't particularly a fan of the tier changes this late in the season, which is understandable. But at the same time, you know, as Colin was saying earlier, it's more just to save people from decide to just sort of quit out a couple of races early, purely because there's nothing for them that they think that they can play for. You know, being able to have these tier changes. I mean, you know, the likes of Jacob Burjax, they've jumped into the Ferrari and Mercedes. Mercedes are currently fighting for the constructors in the P2 tier, with Solau, you know, trying to fight that out. Sauber, Kinney, and Mokwi in the P2 tier, they're trying to cause a bit of noise as well. Kinney could try and maybe help out Mokwi in the championships to maybe even try and jump up in the top 5. Phaged and Mr. Zonta as well, and then in the Ferraris, Burjax. I mean, probably the only one that would not benefit out of that is Burjax, I'll be honest. But I mean, again, you can cause a bit of noise in that P2 tier. I can definitely sense that.
Yeah, exactly that. And obviously, there's a bit of discussion in the chat regarding the moves, but this is where it is so important and so vital for every single driver applying to race with One Hub that you set a representative time for us to judge the pace, to stop these things happening where we have to move drivers. You know, we have had incidents in the past where drivers have deliberately sandbagged to get into a lower tier, and we spot that and we promote you into the right tier. So there's no benefit at all to you from doing it. And this is just a little bit of evidence that shows if you are too quick for the tier, you will get promoted. And, you know, it's not a case of you're always going to get overlap. You know, you're never going to get it that the guy who qualifies pole in P2 will happen to be 20th in P1. It's never going to work like that. There's always going to be that overlap.
Yeah.
But the difference in pace from the top P3 drivers compared to even the mid pack of the P2 tier was far too great, and it was deemed unfair on the other P3 drivers. So this is why we made this decision.
Yeah.
But like you say, it needs another tier. To be honest, it doesn't matter how many tiers you have, you're always going to get this problem. I race in a different league, and there's 7 tiers, and that has the same problem. Unfortunately, or fortunately, whichever way you want to look at it, it does come down to, a lot of the time, integrity of the drivers. You know, obviously drivers start off new to league racing, and then they dramatically improve, and that happens as well. But yeah, we're confident that we've made the right decision here.
Yeah, no, I completely agree as well. So I think it's definitely going to be very interesting. And I think, you know, there's going to be a lot of, as you said, there's a lot of overlap between each of them. And I think that, you know, we are taking those necessary changes in the P3 and P2 tier. They were definitely needed. So I'm looking forward to seeing how that's going to go. And in fact, speaking, of course, of the P3 tier and, of course, P2 tier, Quinn is currently sort of waiting at the moment in the pre-race talk show. So if he could make his way in, we can quickly get an interview underway with him about each of those tiers. Because obviously I know he's doing comms with me for this evening in P2. And of course, racing in the P3. He was racing in P2, but dropped down into the P3 tier. So I'll be quite intrigued to see on what he thinks about, you know, the difference of like P3 and P2, just to give that insight. Because to say he's raced in with both of them. He's not doing too bad in the P3 tier either when he's jumped down. So I think, you know, getting to sort of experience that between the difference of the P3 and P2 tier, I think is quite interesting.
It is, yeah. That, you know, Quinn is a perfect example of being able to gauge the pace here. Quinn had a bit of a disappointing race last week, considering, but I'd made a really, really good recovery. Unfortunately, spun just, I think, was lap 31 or 32, which cost him 7th place, with Jamie having to jump him with his penalties.
Mm-hmm.
But Quinn driving really, really, really well, along with his teammate Gazaman as well, who is, to be honest, not out of the hunt of a potential trophy in top 3.
Yeah, no, I mean, he's sitting on, how many points at the moment? He's on, sorry, I just had it up. He is on 33 points at the moment, is good old Gazaman. So he's definitely capable of making up that many points and getting himself into the top 3, especially now considering, I say, Kinney and Burjax have moved up. So it's 50 points basically that he's got to make. Obviously, with the other drivers, the likes of Matthias and Jamie as well. But I suppose it helps the fact that Jamie isn't here this evening, so he's really got to try and fight Matthias and your dad for the other 2 spots, because say Jacob's basically already taken the top one. It's just the other 2. So yeah, there's definitely a chance. And yeah, as you have probably just heard in your race as well, we have got Quinn here for the pre-race talk shows as well. Quinn, how are you doing this afternoon?
Yeah, I'm not doing too bad. Of course, with the driver changes in P2 and P3 is going to be very interesting. Of course, having raced against Zontal, Kinney, Burjax and Jacob, I think definitely Jacob, Kinney and Burjax, all 4 of them really will, I'd imagine, be challenging for at least top 10 in P2.
Yeah, they're definitely very they're very experienced in that P3 tier, and I definitely think they can challenge for even potentially a top 5 in that P2 tier. But obviously, racing, me and Colin were just talking about it, racing in both P2 and P3 tier what would you say is like the biggest difference that you're looking at between both of the P2 and the P3 tier for the drivers that have been promoted and demoted to each of those tiers?
Um, I'd say like with the like you obviously don't have people that are as fast in P3, so that can lead to having some like incidents and just like inconsistent racing. But apart from that, there isn't really much difference between P2 and P3. Obviously, P2 is gonna have faster drivers, but in terms of racing standards and everything, there isn't really much of a difference. They're both quite a good standard of just like in terms of wheel to wheel racing and everything, they're pretty much the same.
Yeah, no, I
But-
what did you say, sorry, Carl?
Sorry, Jack. Welcome along, Quinn. Nice to have you here again. So, how confident are you now that with those drivers being promoted, that you could possibly get some podiums, possibly even a couple of victories?
I think I think it sort of balances it out really. Obviously, I know that all four of the drivers coming down from P2 can on their day challenge for race wins and podiums. So in that sense, it's about the same difficulty, but I think having raced like previous experience against the four coming down from P2, I think I've got slightly more of a chance of challenging for like top 5 and podiums and potentially race wins.
So, how are you feeling for Singapore? And are you wanting it dry, or would you like a bit of rain to mix it up?
Well, it's a tricky one because I know how difficult it is, like around specifically street circuits, and even more difficult around Singapore in the wet. But me and you both know what my pace is like in the wet, so secretly I'm hoping for a wet race.
Well, funny enough, I was thinking the same. I was thinking surely Quinn wants it wet after your previous wet performances have been absolutely brilliant, very, very fast, and more importantly, not making errors. So it'd be very interested. You're certainly, if there's a hint of rain, you are certainly my punt for the race victory tonight.
Oh, thank you, Cole. I appreciate that.
Jack, anything more from yourself, mate?
I mean, there isn't much else I can really say. Obviously, I know it'll be the first time that we're doing the P2 tier for this evening as well, Quinn. I suppose I better just give an early ask as to who you think might potentially do well. If you think maybe some of the guys in the P3 tier may do well, or who you think might end up sort of taking the win for the P2 tier this evening. Give an early prediction.
I'll say out of the 4 people that have gone up, I think Kinney and Zonful, one of those 2 will get a podium. I'm just gonna put it out there. I think Kinney or Zonful or Zontal will get a podium.
Okay.
Just like based off the last few races, even the qualifying at Imola in the last race, those 2 were in another world. So if they can carry that pace over to P2, then I can see either of them getting a podium.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. We'll see if that's going to be the case for both Kinney and for Zonthal in terms of trying to get a podium. As say, it's very tight in the P2 tier, so I think it's going to be quite interesting. But yeah, that's pretty much from me. So, good. Obviously, thank you very much for joining us in that. Obviously, good luck for your race in P3 later on, and I will speak to you for the P2 comms later on as well.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. I'll see you
Yeah,
later.
good luck tonight, mate. All the best.
Yeah, thanks, Carl. You too.
So that's obviously for both P3 and for P2. Now we better get onto the P1 side of things. Obviously, we have got. You said Sicko has recently joined in. So I'm kind of intrigued to see how he's going to be because he's replacing Pelzy, if I'm not mistaken. In that, it says commentators are
Yeah.
Mike and Jack, but of course it's Mike and Max. Yeah, I'm intrigued to see how that Sicko's going to get because I've not heard of him before, so I don't know what his pace is going to be like at all.
No, that's same here really. So he's certainly an unknown. So that's going to be really interesting to see what pace he's got. But this P1 title's now getting just as interesting, if not more interesting, than P2, because we got Keys out in front of the minute on 86 points. We got Ben Mills in second on 83. Marco in third on 82. Axlock on 77. And then a certain J. Cole on 67. So that title is now really ramping up. We know Ben Mills is very, very fast. He's won, to be fair, most of the races he has entered. Unfortunately, he's had to miss a couple. But to be honest, there's two drivers who have really impressed me greatly this season. That's Keys and Axlock. Their improvement on this game and their consistency is quite astonishing, to be honest.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I mean, when it was happening this season, I was I suppose when Ben Mills and Callum and Arthur were missing for a few races, I was thinking to myself, okay, I've got a chance of actually, maybe getting back that championship lead that I had at like towards the beginning. Now, I've got no hope. in the nicest way possible, I've got no hope. I was shocked at the fact that Keys and Axel, how fast they were. I'll be honest with you. It's very good to see that they're both improved massively as well. Absolutely feeding Axel's ego because I can see he's in the chat. But it's nice to see that how much that they both improved, and a lot more competition now. So it's very good. In my opinion, I think the more competition is better. Makes it a hell of a lot more competitive overall. I think it's going to be very interesting. As I say, with the new driver, with the amount of people that we've got at the moment, I mean, Ben Mills and Key are put down as the rivalry for today in the P1 side of things, because I think they're only separated by 3 points, to my knowledge, in the standings. So, yeah, as you say, Ben Mills, every single race that he's entered, bar Silverstone at the start of the season where he had the puncture, he's won every race.
Yeah, that's the thing. His level of speed and consistency is absolutely brilliant. Will the pressure start to get to him a little bit now? Now he's actually fighting for the championship. Will that make any difference to him? I don't know. It does not seem to be affecting Keys or Axlock. If anything, it's making them perform better. But we'll just have to wait and see. We've got some very different style of tracks coming up as well, so it'll be interesting to see whether that pace stays the same. I mean, this is a completely different track to the likes of Silverstone and Belgium. And one, like we said before, Jack, one little mistake, and you're going to lose your front wing, not just run into gravel. So it's going to have to be relatively, they can't afford to go flat out every lap, can they?
No, exactly that. So, yeah, with those remaining races, it's going to be tough for the likes of Key, for the likes of Axelock, for trying to hold off Ben Mills. I mean, Callum and Arms, where he's sitting behind me in standings in sixth, but that's definitely not representative because he's missed a few races, and I think he's even missing this week as well, if I'm not mistaken. I think it's his last one that he's missing. So, yeah, I think it's very... He shouldn't be where he is at the moment, I'll be honest, in terms of his pace-wise, but I think it's very tight to call who's going to win the championship again for both P3, P2. Obviously, P2 and P1. P3's already been announced with that with Jacob, but P2 and P1, yeah, I think it's going to be very tight to call in terms of who's going to come out on top. I mean, we also got to talk about it. Both of the ERT boys in the Alpine, they've been there for 2 races now, and they've definitely put on a they've put on a bit of a performance with the rest of the guys in the top spot. I mean, Arnaud was was me and Cannon versus Arnaud and Senna last week. Week before,
Mhm.
Arnaud was also getting involved in the top 5 at Baku as well. So the ERT boys in the Alpines are definitely fitting quite nicely in the P2 in the P1 side for the first 2 races that they've had.
Yes, exactly that. And of course, we do have some engine and gearbox penalties as well to deal with. So if we look through them for a sec. So if we look at P1 first, Curry is taking his engine penalty. So I'm really surprised about that to see around such a tight, twisty circuit. Axlock is taking his gearbox penalty, so that's going to be 5 places back for him. In P2, there are no engine penalties being taken, but we do have 3 gearbox penalties. That is Cam, Moogs, who is our championship, well, I say leader, tied on points, and just second on count back of wins. And Rich is also taking his gearbox penalty as well. In the P3 tier, we got 3 drivers taking their engines. That's Max, the Fury Formula, and Shiesty. And we also have 3 taking gearbox penalties. That's Hockey Nye, Whopping Proverb, as we've spoke, has just moved down, and Dr. Mew. So I don't know about you, Jacob, but I'm surprised to see so many take engine penalties here, considering it's such a difficult track to overtake.
Yeah, I'm shocked Singapore's one of them that they've chosen to do it round. I'll be honest with you. I think Singapore is, as I was saying earlier, it's notoriously a track that's tough to overtake at. So to see that they're doing that around Singapore is quite surprising. Quite surprising to me. I would have thought, around this circuit, it's not easy whatsoever to do what they've done. To overtake, say it's mainly just going to be based on strategy. If they're really good in terms of what they can do on their strategy and hope that safety cars will help them, then fair enough. But I just don't see it, to be honest with you. I think the guys that have taken engine penalties and gearbox penalties for this evening, I think it's going to be very tight. I mean, I think the only ones that really got the memo were the P2 tier. They didn't take any engine penalties, but 3 of them taking gearboxes. So one of them being one of the championship protagonists of Morgan. So that I'm quite intrigued to see how he's going to move his way up through. Axel also taking that 5 grid place penalty, so again needs to have a good qualifying himself for this evening. With Proverb taking his P3 in his P3 debut taking a gearbox penalty, so I think again that's definitely one to look out for coming through the field. Hockey Night as well. I think he's impressed over the past couple of races. So there's a few guys that are taking their gearbox and engine penalties. I would probably say at the wrong track, but they are capable of making up a few positions.
Yeah, exactly that. And of course, there's a high chance of safety cars here as well. I mean, if you look at the real Formula One, I don't think there's ever been a race without a safety car. I grant you one of them was caused by Nelson Piquet Jr., but we won't go into that too much. So expect to see some safety cars this evening. But of course, Jack, we are still waiting to hear on the weather, which I'm sure everyone's very keen to know.
We certainly are, for sure. Obviously, I know everybody loves to know what a bit of weather is going to be like for this evening, and I'm very intrigued to see what it's going to bring. Get in the chat what you think it's going to be, what you want it to be, because I know you and me again, we're talking about it very briefly, Colin. Usually, you want a bit of dry and I want a bit of wet, but we kind of want it the opposite way around this week, don't we?
Oh yes, I've already started my rain dance. So yeah, as I'm feeling, so the reason why I'm wanting it wet is I'm rough as hell at the minute, so I don't think I'm going to be doing much practice. So limiting the amount of dry tactically might help me, maybe not. But I'd like to see qualifying dry and then a bit of rain in the race.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, that's very, very interesting. Mikey is in the chat saying the wetter is better. Rydog is saying if it ain't snowing, then I don't want to know. So we're hoping for a bit of snow and a bit of wetness. Let's have a look, shall we? Over into qualifying. what are we going to have for this evening around Singapore? It is going to be a clear qualifying for this evening.
Ooh, there we are. So perfect conditions then. So that's the best conditions that you could have. So expect to see some very, very fast lap times then.
We certainly will. And let's have a look and see if it's going to be the same situation in the race. Of course, we've already had 2 races where it's been wet. Are we going to see a third for this evening? Let's have a quick look. We have got an overcast to light cloud to clear. So
Ooh.
it is straight dry the whole time. No rain. Larkin did try and bribe me. I unfortunately couldn't take the bribe. And unfortunately for him, it's not going to be raining. But I know he can be a bit dashing around Singapore. So I don't know if he was really hoping there'd be rain or not. But unfortunately, no rain. Mikey said he might go and stand out on SimGrid now because of no rain. But yeah, no rain whatsoever. It's clear in qualifying and then overcast to light cloud to clear in the race. Strategy around here, I say, plays a major part around Singapore. So I think, again, it's just going to be up to strategy. And again, it's whoever plays the best strategy, I think will get a good result despite having an engine and gearbox penalty.
Yeah, exactly that. And of course, it's one of those tracks again where you can get track limits. And if we are going to get a late safety car, those on 0 penalties are going to be jumping up the field. So it's going to be very important for these drivers not to get any time penalties. Imola is one of those circuits where don't really tend to get that many. Certainly in P1, everyone was pretty decent with the penalty count. Singapore, I think, might be quite different. And of course, there's some curbs which are lethal and will fling you potentially into the barrier as well. So I think tonight's going to be very, very interesting. Don't forget, there will be a practice session at 3 o'clock after the real Formula One, which does start in approximately 20 minutes. So if you do want to join that, check out the Social Racing page on the Discord and you can sign up and you'll get invited to that session. But from myself, best of luck to all drivers. And let's hope we have another fantastic race like we did in Imola.
Certainly do. So as I say, if you want to check out all of the action for P3 tier at 4:30 p.m. UK time, BST, make sure you guys are tuning in for both Colin and Nick to take you through the coverage of P3 side of things, and see how, I said, the Moto P2 drivers get on in the P3 tier. Say constructors all still to play for there. 6 p.m. UK time with myself and Quinn. Again, four-way title fight, closely becoming a 3-way title fight if Larkin doesn't pull his act together. So you don't want to miss out on that one for sure. And then in the P1 tier, of course, at 7:30 p.m. will be covered this evening by Mike and by Max. So you don't want to be missing out on that. See how Sicko or Psycho will get on in the P1 tier, and see how everybody else fares on around the streets around Marina Bay. That's been everything from me. Any other final words, Colin? Obviously, I know you were saying, good luck to everybody. I wish everybody the best downfall in the P1 side of things, but any other final words?
Yeah, I hope everyone bar me has horrendous luck in P1. Thanks very much. No, it's gonna. I see there's a lot of discussion regarding the changes again. Just to add a bit more to that. We always try to cater for every driver, not just the ones that are doing well and and going quick. It's important to us to have balanced tiers so that everyone is enjoying themselves and they don't feel like they're going to get lapped every race, etc., etc. Yes, it might appear frustrating if drivers move tiers and you're going from fighting for top 5s to then potentially fighting for top 10s. But it just emphasizes the fact that they were in the wrong tier anyway. But just remember that just because you're quick, or just because you're not lightning fast, doesn't mean you're going to get a good result. Especially around a circuit like Singapore. If you just stay out of trouble, avoid the walls, get the strategy right, you're going to get a good result. So, like I said, best of luck to everyone, and I will see you all for a bit of practice at 3 o'clock.
Certainly will. So, thank you everybody for tuning in for the pre-race shows. And yeah, we'll catch you guys, say, for this evening at 4:30 for the 8th round, around Marina Bay Circuit.